We all know who Vincent van Gogh is, right? He was a poor, friendless loner whose art was a product of his mental illness, which also drove him to cut off his ear to give to his lover. And of course, he died an unknown artist. These are common stories about Van Gogh, and while he was a troubled man, those statements aren't exactly true. Okay, let's dive in. Myth 1. Van Gogh lived in abject poverty. Although Van Gogh had chronic money troubles, he was far from destitute. In fact, starting in 1882, his brother Theo, an art dealer in Paris, provided Vincent with a steady allowance of 75 guilders a month. When you consider a factory worker only earned 32 guilders a month, you'll see Vincent was actually doing rather well for himself. But even though Van Gogh had a decent income, he still lacked for food and drink because he spent all of his money on art supplies. Myth 2. Van Gogh was a friendless loner. Vincent van Gogh certainly had a difficult temperamental personality and moved frequently, which strained some of his friendships. Yet he was far from socially isolated. He cultivated a network of sympathetic people around him, including artist friends like Émile Bernard, with whom he maintained a loyal friendship, and Paul Gauguin, his housemate in Arles for a tense 2 months. Van Gogh even had a romantic relationship. He lived for about a year with Clasina Hornick, a former prostitute, and her children in The Hague. Friends, relatives, and his devoted brother Theo provided crucial emotional and practical support throughout his life. Myth 3. Van Gogh's famous ear mutilation was a grand romantic gesture. This myth started when a local newspaper, Le Forum Républicain, ran a lurid article soon after the event. It said, he presented his wrapped up ear to a woman he loved, saying, "Keep this object safe." The truth is Van Gogh was mentally unwell. He suffered a severe breakdown after fighting with Gauguin, and in a psychotic episode, cut off his ear, then mechanically brought it to a woman he knew. After he recovered a week later, Van Gogh had no recollection of the event, and there's no evidence that the woman he brought the ear to was a lover of his. Myth 4. Van Gogh was an insane, tortured genius, perpetually mad, and his art was the product of mental illness. Van Gogh did suffer serious mental health crises, but it is an oversimplification to label him as permanently mad. In truth, he experienced a series of intermittent breakdowns separated by periods of lucidity and productivity. The majority of the time, he was relatively sane and stable. The idea that one can see Van Gogh's madness directly in his paintings, for instance the distorted forms and swirling skies, is a discredit to the study and effort Van Gogh put into his work over several years. For example, he took art classes in Brussels, Antwerp, and Paris, where he mingled with the Impressionists and absorbed influences like Japanese woodblock prints and pointillism. He even studied alongside Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, the famous poster and painter of Paris's underbelly. To say that Van Gogh's genius lay in his madness, that he painted in a fever of hallucinations, is a straw man that distorts the true nature of his artistry. Myth 5. Van Gogh died an unknown artist. Van Gogh's fame did explode after his death, but it is not true that he died in total obscurity. In the final 2 years of his life, he was already gaining recognition in avant-garde circles. He secured invitations to important group exhibitions. For instance, his paintings were shown in the Salon des Indépendants in Paris in 1888 and 1890, and the Les XX exhibition in Brussels also in 1890. Just a few months before his death, one of his portraits was even praised in a prominent Paris art review, marking a burgeoning respect for his talent. His art dealer brother Theo wrote to Vincent of collectors showing interest In short, Van Gogh was on the brink of success. As art historian Martin Bailey observes, had Van Gogh lived a few more years, it is almost certain that he would have started to really earn the full recognition that he deserved. Sadly, on July 27, 1890, devastated by illness and fearing never-ending relapse, Van Gogh shot himself in the chest and died 2 days later. Tragically, only 6 months later, Theo, his loving brother who worked tirelessly during Vincent's life to exhibit, sell and publicize his art, also passed away from progressive syphilis and severe depression. It was Theo's widow, Jo van Gogh-Bonger, who was the main force behind the long-term promotion of Vincent's work after his death. Over the next 3 decades, she systematically organized exhibitions, sold selected works and published his letters. Without Jo's relentless work, it is doubtful anyone outside avant-garde circles would know who Vincent van Gogh was. And now you know the facts about Van Gogh, find out why Parisians ripped this Moulin Rouge poster created by Vincent's friends Toulouse-Lautrec off the walls of Paris. Or, if you'd like to own your own Van Gogh print, I've got a discount for you of 30% off all prints in our store, artloveart.com. The discount code and link are in the description.